Hello, we are Jordan, Noah, and Mia, and the topic we decided to do our presentation on is Studio Ghibli throughout the eras of Japan. Each of us decided to take three eras and talk about the differences between them. We chose the bubble era, the post-bubble era, and the P2 era. So let's talk about bubble era. Some of the Studio Ghibli films that were released during this bubble era time was Kiki's Delivery Service in 1989, Nausicaa in 1984, and My Neighbor Totoro, which is very famous, 1988. So what happened during this bubble era from 1973 to 1990? Japan's economy was so rich with money. Japan had marked increase in asset prices and expansion in monetary aggregates and credit, and they had an overheating economy. It was just party city every day. So while Kiki's Delivery Service is seemingly a coming of age movie, Nausicaa and Totoro have a deeper meaning. Nausicaa explores themes about anti-war and the focus on environment, while Totoro relates to the youth that are dealing with the aftermath of the war. All their movies express uncertainty and curiosity of future events relating to the people in Japan who wonder what's next in store for them. One main theme in these films was hypercapitalism, where everything was about money. Everything had a value of money, so most people were blinded by greed, such as Kushana in Nausicaa. However, Kiki starting her delivery service was another example of how to chase money in the bubble era. Another main theme we see in the bubble era is kaman, which is the need to hold in emotions even when the times are stressful. For example, Satsuki and Mei were dealing with their mom being in the hospital. They did everything in their power to get to her in the ending after finding out their mom couldn't come home, but they broke down and made rash decisions in the process. Females in the bubble era were highly fashionable with flashy clothes. In Kiki's Delivery Service, we see the girls in the background accompanied by a hyper-masculine man. But on the other hand, girls were still expected to do the housework and make the food for the house, such as Sasuke is doing. Despite the norms, Studio Ghibli highlighted the start of hyper-competent women in these three films. This makes me believe that Studio Ghibli did this on purpose to break societal norms in their films to be rebellious in a way. The girls ended up being kind of like Kaneda in Akira, in a way. On the other hand, there was also a glimpse of masculine men in the background. The main males in each film were rather just there for support than being that hyper masculine hero. They didn't stereotypically treat the women as toys, and they were the ones, while the women were the ones doing the heroic duties. The last idea I wanted to bring up was that Japan society during that time was all about surviving in groups. As you can see, the main characters had others with them the whole time to help out with their goal. Now, Noah, we'll talk about the post-bubble era.
Thanks, Jordan. Hi, I'm Noah, and I'll be going over the post-bubble. And the some of the movies that came out during that era was Poko, Princess Mononoke, and then a Spirited Away, a film that we've also gone over. Looking at Poko, it's a story that looks over the band of Tanuki, shown in this picture, with the ability to transform, and it's their quest to protect their home, prevent the expansion um, and the destruction of their environment. But looking at Princess Mononoke, which came out in 1997, it again looks at the conflict of both the between nature and industrialization, and it also can be shown as a fight between finding a balance between the two. Then third, we'll look at Spirited Away, which came out in 2001. We also went over this in class, but it is the story about Chihiro, and she's just thrown into a mysterious and mystical world, and she needs to fight to survive. We look at Anohi as a way of that day in the post-bubble era where everything kind of changed and people had to adapt. I connected that with Chihiro and how she was thrown into that mystical world and she needed to adapt. Fighting to survive is a concept I saw that Pompoko had, and essentially their way of life and the way they have continued to live is abruptly changed, and they want to and have to fight the status quo in order to survive, which is just like the struggle of the post-bubble era. We also see neoliberalism in both Spirited Away and in Princess Mononoke in the forms of Yubaba and her bathhouse and the wealth she is generating from that, and Lady Eboshi and her Iron Town, which is a growing industrialization. Is hyper-competent women a continued theme in Studio Ghibli? And looking at, again, Princess Mononoke, we see that San, one of the main female characters, and Lady Eboshi are both very hyper-competent in their skills set and as well as how they are portrayed. Another concept of Studio Ghibli is the environment. We look at Pompoko and it's the destruction of forests and mountains in the quest of expanding houses, and the industrialization of Irontown in the destruction of the forests and the water. We can look at Studio Ghibli's characters over the eras and as they can be strong female characters and independent, like Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service and Chihiro from Spirited Away. Overall, they can be very consistent, but they also fit the role of each era. Now we have Mia with the post bubble.
Hi everyone, my name is Mia Maynard. I will be doing the last 10 slides of this presentation. It will be on the post-bubble era, otherwise known as the P2 era, and how it is represented in Studio Ghibli movies, such as Ponyo and in Howl's Moving Castle. Ponyo was released in 2008, while Howl's Moving Castle was released in 2004. Both of these, I think, represent the struggle of the P2 generation, whether that be Howl, Sophie, or Ponyo, shows how they are tested. And of course, I want to represent Anohai, otherwise known as That Day. So Ponyo is a goldfish princess who longs to be in the surface world despite her father's tellings and how he's so against the human world. And Sophie works for her father in a hat shop. While she's not unhappy, I believe she's bored. She longs for adventure. I think a big thing that was made clear from the post-bubble to the post-bubble era was Anohai, otherwise known as One Day. I think represented through Ponyo, it is her being taken by a fisher's net, or being caught in a fisher's net and in the jar, and lands on the surface world, where she meets Sosuke, and everything from there changes. I think in Howl's Moving Castle, Anohai can be represented two ways, or three ways. Sophie being cursed after meeting Howl, Sophie meeting Howl, and how Howl meets Calcifer and gives him his heart. All of them have changed after that day. So after Anohai, otherwise known as That Day, P2 generation has their options to either escape, fight, survive, adapt, or live. I think Ponyo truly represents the means of escape, that option. She escapes from her father many times to Sosuke. The P2 generation is obviously trying to pick up the pieces from the post-bubble generation and how they tried to fix the economy afterwards and how their jobs were made and how they created this economy. I think it is represented through Sosuke, especially in this quote, "I'm taking care of everyone," when he's talking on the phone with his dad. I think Sophie really represents how parents force like the P2 generation to take a certain route. Sophie, it was forced to age and forced to grow up until she was able to take a different route and the route she wanted to take. I think another big representation that both movies have is the hyper competent woman. Like Mikasa from AOT, Sophie is able to fight her own battles and even in kindness is able to help the Witch of the Waste. Ponyo has two of the biggest representations of the hyper-competent woman, who is Ponyo's mom, who is literally a goddess, and Lisa, Sosuke's mom, who may not be a goddess, but is one of the bravest characters you see fighting against those waves, bringing Ponyo in. I think she definitely has the biggest representation of the hyper-competent woman. Thank you guys so much for watching and for your time.